Hey, Bill, can't see you.
That's a good reason why, right there. How are you today?
What did you do? Didn't click yourself in?
I didn't click myself in.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Keith, Rodney,
Hey, everybody.
James, Mike, DC.
I'm not seeing them in my chat. That's because I'm in private chat, not comments. Huh. How did everybody like the intro tonight? Did everybody see that? Did it come over across YouTube or is it just on StreamYard?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen parts of it. I was doing some things. There's Scott. Hey, Roy.
I woke up here this morning. It was 10 degrees.
I don't know what it was here. It was cold. I know that much. At
Yep.
least it wasn't windy. Hey, Mike.
Merry Christmas to you too, Roy, and everybody else. Hey, Bill. You ready for Christmas, Charlie?
Yeah, whatever. Ready as ever be, I guess.
Ready as gonna get, right?
That's about what it amounts to. That's what I was doing tonight. Getting everybody's envelopes ready.
There you go.
I just do it that way.
There you go.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
I see you got a present from Scott, did you? A little beehive.
Yeah, I did. That was pretty cute. I like that.
Yeah, I got one. I haven't taken a picture of it. Scott, I'll be posting a picture of mine too.
Yep.
I've just been busy. Tomorrow, I think I might hopefully be a little bit slower. Let's see.
Nancy, did you get my text earlier?
Hey, Dodd. So I drove up around, I don't know, must have been 11:30 today across in front of the hives there. And I had a few of them there that were out at the front door, even though it's 30 some degrees, kind of peeking out. I don't know whether they were well warmed on the inside.
They might have been very warm.
Nancy didn't. Hey, Danny. Yeah, I'm eating pretzels tonight, Randy. Not sure what Bill's eating.
Tortilla chips. And I got a cup of tea in here with me. Hey, Randy, how are you this evening? I'm trying to chew quietly. I'm sorry if I'm bothering everybody.
So anyway, like I say, I seen a few of them. They were kind of out in the front entrance there a little bit, and that's about all I did as far as the bees today. And things were sort of slow, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And, huh?
I didn't have anybody come in today. The only people I had come in today was the girl that brought me lunch.
Well, I had pretty good honey sales today.
Yeah.
It's not like it normally is, but I sold. Let's see, what did I sell? I don't know, like. Let's see. Check it out.
So I got an email from Nod Farms today, makers of Formic Pro.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to buy Formic Pro, whoever you're going to buy it from, you better be buying it before the 1st of March, because the 1st of March prices are going up significantly on Nod Farms products, which is all the Formic Pro products.
Really?
Yes, because of tariffs, and their statement was they've kept prices down and absorbed costs and shipping costs and everything as long as they can. So prices are going to go up wholesale as well as retail.
Yeah, I sold 3, 6, 3 fours are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 pounds of honey today.
Well, that's
Not
pretty
too,
good.
not too shabby. So let's
And
see.
it's going to get even more expensive. Not laughing at everybody's plate, but because it's going to cost me more too. But I'm just wondering what it's going to do to woodenware costs for the suppliers that get woodenware out of Canada. So
Come on.
I don't know. It's supposedly this tariff that they're going to enact is 25%.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of biding my time and see what they do. I know some of my prices are going to be going up too because of import tariffs and everything starting 1st of February. So not going up much, but they're going to go up some.
Right. Hmm.
Well, Gary, it's a good chance that they will. No, that's Scott, unlikely beekeeper. Sorry, Scott. I'm thinking of somebody else. Basically, what I'm being told by a couple of people is that if it comes from China, Mexico, Canada, or a country that is a quote unquote terrorist listed country, then there's going to be a substantial tariff on it. Hey, Tar Heel. So it's basically everything, it's going to have a tariff on it. Now, I get my wood locally out of Pennsylvania, so my wood prices are going to stay the same. But everything else is going to go up a little bit. We'll see what they do. So, kind of where we stand right now.
So what's Formic Pro at your place now? Do you know?
Hang on a minute, I can tell you.
Hey, Randy. Hey, James. How's things up in Michigan?
Right now a 2-dose pack
Let's get up.
is $19.
What's a tenner?
And hang on. A 30-dose pack is 140. And a 10-dose pack is 65.
Pros, what? Good for what? 2 years?
Usually, yes.
I'm just looking. I got enough to do September of next year. That would be. I wonder what year that stuff is now.
When did you get it?
No, I'm talking about if you bought something now. Or
If you buy it now, it won't ship until March of 2025. So it could either be 2024 or 2025. So it's either going to be 26 or 27 is when it would expire.
yeah, James, here in Maryland, Baltimore, we're supposedly getting some ice. Maybe he's going to be using the tariffs as a leverage point, I think. Hey, Gary. Yeah, I think Sunday it's supposed to hit 50 here, James. James, aren't you going to be down in Nobby with a booth? Okay.
No booth.
Okay. I'll be there too. Bill's going to be there. I think, what's your booth number, Bill?
4:30.
Yep. Well, he's got foundation for you, or you got him foundation for James. James is ahead of the sustainable beekeeping in Michigan, the best I can remember.
Okay. Yeah, I got foundation for him. Okay, James, you said we did good. Which one of us? Or both of us? So I was telling Nancy earlier today that I had gotten her square feeders on the way, so I ordered some extra ones when I ordered them.
Let's see here.
Well, I don't know what the weather is going to be driving across Missouri to Louisville, Pete, but I know driving across West Virginia, it's going to be fairly nice. And it's supposed to be in the 40s down there all week at Nobby.
That's good.
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50 shot.
James, ahead of the Sustainable, I have to read it off. Sustainable Beekeepers Guild of Michigan. So, all right, everybody, what's happening? We're doing a little talking. How about some of you guys coming on in?
Exactly. Some of y'all come in here. Roy.
How about Scott and James? And James
Y'all
got
come
a
on in
James.
here.
You can stop in and talk about your
Talk about the guild.
Yeah, well, he's having a big winter conference in February by YouTube.
Come on in here. Tell us about that conference. I'm just the beauty, not the brains.
I'm not sure about that. No makeup on, huh?
And who else we got on here?
So, James, how do you like that new insulation system that you were putting on? Rod, you're up in Michigan, I believe it is.
Randy and Roy, why don't y'all come in here?
Nice. In South Carolina.
There's James.
There, how's that working? Can you hear me now?
Yep. We can see you.
I had to figure it out. Sometimes when it comes to computers, I feel kind of boomerish. No offense. Yeah, the installation system is pretty cool, man. I like it for just slipping it on. Peggy's done a great job. It's nice and the best part is if you have chickens, when you use the Hive Hugger and you have the foil backing on there, the chickens are not necessarily attracted to it. For some reason, they really like pecking out the pink foam. And I had another yard that I use the pink foam boards as insulators on the end of a stack. So I don't insulate every hive. I push everyone together and then insulate the ends. And the chickens just pick the mess out of all of the foam boards. So this year, I didn't insulate them the way I normally do. I just insulated the top. So unfortunately, I didn't get to use the system I typically do. But Peggy's system, if you have just a few colonies, and are looking to use the condensing hive method, is perfect. It's definitely not economical at scale if you're using 100. If you're running 100 colonies,
Yeah, I looked at them, but they were what, $60 or something? Or more?
Good question. I mean, I feel like the price is fair considering what she's offering. And if you use if you're a member of the SPGMI, should give you a little rebate. Let's see, what's the double deep? What does she got here? 10 frame, $52.50 for. Nope, that's just the crown board. Hold on. The crown boards, if you're going to get any part of it, if you just get the crown board, that's what I would tell anybody in the upper half north of the Mason-Dixon. To if you're gonna,
Well, did you use like 1.5 inch regular, pink styrofoam before, just on the far as the top?
yeah, the 2 inch and a half, 2 inch foam board, at least 1 inch.
And did you insulate the sides or just the top, or did you kind of cover them up like you say, where you put them all together?
Yeah, just so I just do the tops, and then I would squeeze them all together, and then
And
insulate the side
did
panels.
did you have good results with all that?
Yeah, I would say that if I had weak colonies, they benefited significantly. That was the one benefit. The downside is that you're nursing weak colonies, right? So, you may be helping a colony that probably, should have perished, because then you're dealing with, slow buildup or languishing resources early spring or getting robbed out, that sort of thing. So, I mean, that's not a terrible downside, but that's just one of the components, one of the downsides to it.
No, I put the insulation up on top this year, and as you can see, the one in my picture there, I put some carpet around them for more of a wind block than anything else. And I don't know. This is my first year of insulating the roof. I've been wanting to do that for several years, but just never got around to it and all. So I finally got some insulation. They seem to be doing well. I mean, I was talking to Bill Heschbeck about it, and he said, the top, if it's going to do anything, do the top for sure, and all that. So and I went ahead and I got the normal inner cover, and I went ahead and blocked the vent hole on the top end of it with a piece of wood, and then put the 2.5 inch insulation on, and tele cover and all that. It all fit on well.
How'd you feel doing that? Did you feel like you were breaking rules? It feels almost unnatural, right? Because like the typical approach is you got to have
I was I had watched Bill's videos and stuff, and then he happened to be coming to the Maryland State Convention back in March, I'll say, of this year, and we talked about it, and I wasn't sure how I was going to accomplish it, whether I was going to make a frame and put the insulation in. I was looking for like some airspace in there, and then he was talking about you want to keep a screen down because the bees are going to come up there, and he had that one instance where he first started it, the bees hung against the insulation. He picked the lid up, 3 pounds of bees went out onto the snow bank, and so he uses, I think, screen inner covers or shims, and so I got to looking at it, and I found out that the insulation is scored at 16 inches and my inner covers at 16.25, and it all kind of, I said, all I got to do is just cover the hole up, put the insulation on. The tele cover goes past the insulation, goes past the inner cover, holds it all in place, and then I put my carpet on, and then I strap it down with a ratchet strap, and it seems to be doing fine. I was concerned about the moisture, like you say, but as long as we can keep that top board, insulated to where it's not going to get cold, the moisture will not condense on it. So I think,
and they have access to the moisture too, so they can use it.
Right. So on the sides and everything, and I mean, his, I won't say theory, but with the heat dome and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I like the idea of that, and then talking about letting the heat out if you have a ventilated hive, and I've had experience with a licensed insulated hive, and completely insulated, none of the vent holes opened, and I watched the 33 parallel or the 60. What's it called? 60 below, up at the guy up in Yukon.
Eddie N.
Ian Tariff or Tardif or whatever his last
Yep.
name.
Tardif.
I've been watching his videos, and I really enjoyed when he had that one video of the sensors in the hive, 20 or 30 sensors, and you could see the pattern of the bees moving around through the heat sensors and stuff. And so I went ahead and jumped in and see if we can't. I think it's going to work and all that.
Yeah, there's some videos from maybe 2 years ago, just little clips when I was checking the yards. I think maybe even in February, insulating the tops. And what was interesting is my wife would throw out an old shower curtain liner, the plastic liners, because shower curtains, they get moldy or dingy, dirty, wore out over the years. So I would take that, and I felt bad throwing it away. Sustainability, right? Sustainable beekeeping. And I would repurpose it, and I would cut that up and use those for inner covers. And the cool part about that is that kept them from chewing or getting attached to the foam board. But also, it would allow me to remove the foam board without any collected heat that was trapped in the colony when I peeked on them, because I couldn't resist looking inside the colony. So you could also see the cluster, and you could tell, if they were doing all right, if they were in decent shape, how many frames they were clinging to.
Was that a clear plastic, or was it kind of?
Yep.
Well, that's like one of our people that comes on our chats, Brian C. He's down in Memphis, and he's like Ian or with Tardif up there, where very data savvy, with weights and humidity and checking mites and all that. But he actually has clear see-through inner covers. They're made out of plastic, what's it called, plexiglass. And I've been really thinking about maybe getting a couple of those, because it's quite, take the insulation off, and there's your bees. Where are they at? Well, you can see where they're at. They're crawling around. And I think that's so cool. Now, the only problem with that inner cover, they had cut a notch like the center portion. Now, they do send you a piece of screening, and he's let them, I think he's taped it in place and let the bees propolize it and shut all that down naturally. And it works quite well. I like his, I've gotten used to listening to his show and all the videos of what's happening and the temperatures and weights and things of that nature. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I followed the recommendations from my mentor the first year I kept bees, and he told me to put an inner cover, and then he told me to put a creosote board or a sound board, the fiber board, old school style, and then put your top cover on there, telescoping cover on the top, and that was all you needed to do. And I did that, and the colony was fairly large size, but they were a sopping wet mess when I checked on them in December, and the colony was just drenched. And they maybe could have died from mites before I got a hold of them, but having learned what I've learned now, there was no insulation to the top, and it wasn't sufficient ventilation for them to be able to do anything with the moisture that was collecting on that roof. And that little creosote board has no R value, or homosote.
Homosote, yeah, it's just well, that's what Man Lake's selling now. Moisture board. It's an old homosote board, which is made out of paper.
Right. And once it's absorbed moisture, it doesn't absorb any more moisture.
And that's Bill Hirschbeck talked about that, where there was no insulation factor. Actually, it was like putting, all that moisture up there like an ice cube, you might say, on top of them.
Right, because then it freezes, and it's counteractive. Yep.
So how's Roy doing?
If the shop heater's a little loud, it'll go off in just a minute. Oh, just hiding out in the barn. It's snowing again. Hey, hello, Michigan beekeeper. I'm just east of Traverse City, about 25 minutes.
Oh yeah, so you guys are getting some nice weather up there.
Oh, we're getting some beauties in there. I saw you popped on, but did that bill pass to increase the amount of income from 15,000 to 45, or?
Oh yeah, so yeah, Roy's asking about a bill we've been working on with the Michigan Senate and House to increase the honey exemption limit. So the honey house exemption rule at $15,000, Michigan beekeepers are required to have their facilities inspected by the state license, which is pretty cost prohibitive. Whereas our cottage food industry can sell up to $25,000 worth of goods like cupcakes and cookies out of their kitchen before inspection is required. And it's kind of disparity. The honey got left behind. So we've been working with the appropriate stakeholders to try to get that limit at the same as the cottage food producers. And as it stands right now, they're supposed to come back on, I think, the 30th. They got a little bit of time left in the session, but it looks like that the bill might not get to the floor because the Michigan Senate or the Michigan House of Representatives is politicking. So they've got people with their agendas that are holding out on quorum until they get their way. Yeah, Florida's got a massive sale limit. Wisconsin's got like 75,000, I think.
So are you saying in your state that you have to have a commercial kitchen?
If you sell $15,001 worth of honey.
Wow.
That's
Virginia goes by gallons of honey. We can sell 250 gallons of honey before we have to have a commercial kitchen or an inspected kitchen. There's a difference in Virginia between commercial kitchen and an inspected kitchen.
Yeah,
Right
it's
now, my
not going
income
to
is
be.
only 70. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Roy.
Oh, right now my income's only $75. Bill.
On what you said your income's only what?
My income's only $75 for the year.
Oh, for honey?
Yeah.
Well, so you're okay for this year.
Oh yeah, I'm okay with this year. In there.
You're okay every year, aren't you, Roy?
I just look at the cost of building materials and trying to put up a facility and trying to, I can do it, but it's a lot of money right now, especially with wood damn near doubled in there. Then if, contracting fees and everything else with that, just to make a small honey house in there, it's kind of redundant with that.
Yeah, I think we'll get there next year. Next year we start a new session, so there'll be a full 2-year session, in the House and the Senate to get something accomplished. And hopefully the stakeholders that involved will still be willing to pick it up. It shouldn't be a problem to get it back on we basically have to start over from scratch if they don't do anything from here until the end of the year. That's fine because all the language and infrastructure is in place, and the right people have been spoken to. So just pick up where we left off.
I've tried to read some of those bills out there, and it's a long process trying to sort through those things, even the simplest ones.
It should have been done a long time ago, but the cottage food law has a better lobby because the Michigan Department of Agriculture is typically involved with cottage food price when raising the price on cottage food because they have a lot of connected, like they're connected to all the farmers markets and those kinds of things, and they're doing more inspections. Like if there's an outbreak, somebody bought bad cookies, that kind of stuff. So they have more of a vested interest in making monitoring and increasing those sales limits. They also don't want it to be too high because then you've got bags of flour sitting in your bathroom because you're doing so great. You got nowhere to store your supplies.
I've worked with the state before in bee cutting facilities and everything else, so I know how difficult some things can be with them. on
Right.
that
Yep.
in there. Hey, Bill, one question. I'll hop off, but we were talking about Formic Pro going up. Where is
Yep.
Apigard? I don't have the tub to see where it's made from. We're
I
going to
don't
see an
sell it.
increase on that.
Italy.
Oh, Epicard, hang on a second.
Apicard is made in Italy.
Yep. It may or may not go up.
Mm.
They haven't determined anything yet on the NATO countries, just the ones that I mentioned.
Last time it went up, they changed. Last time the country they were in had an increase on production, then that's when they moved. They moved to Italy. I believe it is Italy, right?
Yeah, it's Italy.
Yeah.
Right
and
now-
before that, it was an adjacent country, and they moved because pricing went up.
Right now, a 10 count box I sell it for $44.55, and the tub sells for $164.70 right now. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, it kind of if you start getting away from one, it kind of limits your option for, using chemicals and everything like that with
Yep,
that
it
one.
does.
So in there, it's going to have to crunch some numbers this year.
Yeah, it's going to get in everybody's pocket, I think. So
Well, Roy, we're going to have a queen pickup up your way, so you'll be able to get a hold of some of our queens.
I've looked at them in the past. So where's the queen pickup going to be?
So it should be somewhere near Traverse. Obviously, as we get further north, population density goes way down.
Oh yeah.
But we're working on a pickup location just outside of Traverse City.
Well, I wanted to introduce some other genetics into because I've kept my own bees and other than feral bees coming in or however it works, but I'm pretty isolated where I live. So in there, so I'd like to introduce some new stock.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a good opportunity to raise some of these BSH queens.
We got James Noel here. He's also from Michigan.
Well, if we get James on here, we'll be 3-2. We can take over this place.
Come in, James.
Don't be afraid, James. Come on in.
your brothers are calling you.
We get Phil from 33Bs on here. We completely taken over.
Yeah, he's in Michigan too. I don't know what our Phil's. He's not on that I know of.
Well, he wrecked his train, so he shouldn't be working tonight.
Yeah, he was up on that B road. Yeah.
James turned you down.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, you said no.
Camera only adds 10 pounds, James. Come on in.
So I don't know what that is.
I thought I had a dead out on it. I was knocking on boxes the other day and it was pretty cold out. Just kind of seeing who was still ticking, and I couldn't hear the bees because apparently I need hearing aids now. But I opened the top of the lid on a 10-frame hive. I've got a single. They were packed, but they were quiet. Dropped the lid quick and got out of there. So I was a little worried about some 10-framers. I overwintered, but looks like I might be all right.
Some of them don't like to respond to the knock. They just stay tight.
Yeah, I hate to get one of those FLIR cameras because I'd be out there all the time screwing around with it.
That's
Yeah,
why I
actually-
use those see-through intercovers, and you don't have to use the flare.
I'm gonna have to get on the side of the road and get some of those shower curtains like you got, like
Mhm.
peeking quick.
I will stop if I see something if I see foam board on the road, I'll stop and pick it up.
Yeah,
Even
I'm
in
not
some
afraid.
dangerous situations. That stuff is $50 a board, I think. It keeps
Yeah.
going up.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
But
I
you get I use 8-frame equipment, so I can get I think 6 tops out of one full board.
Yeah,
And that's so $50 for 6 top covers versus 6 telescoping covers at $20-$30 a pop.
Yeah, I've got a guy up here that doesn't sell it to me. I helped him get started in beekeeping, so he keeps me in 1-inch dried ash all the time, and I just build my migratory lids out of that.
Hmm.
So they're heavy, but they're not going anywhere.
Yep, I appreciate migratory lids. I try to pick them up when I can.
Yeah, actually, I just got today. I bought a flare that Phil the Bee Man up in Manitoba they had a flare and they had this other unit. I can't even tell you what it is.
Yeah, I just looked at that tonight online. Because I watched his video the other day, and it was
Thermal
only
mount.
like 180.
It's if you go to the link, it's $189. No taxes, no shipping.
Well,
And
you buy it, you let us know how it works.
I got it.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got it today. Only problem is I think I need a new phone now.
That's $1,000.
The little I've been having trouble trying to charge my phone and get it. You have to kind of like hold it in on that little prong in the bottom and that C connection or whatever it is. And so it doesn't see it. It was like in and out as far as the connection of the camera. I said, all right, it sounded like a new phone. So, oh well. But I like the sharpness of it, what I've seen on the videos. So
My son came home from Long Island last summer in August and helped me work bees. That's all he wanted to do. So he's got the bug. So I wasn't going to go to the expo this year, but he talked me into it. And he's got all his classes picked out, and he's just raring to go. So he's going to fly into the airport and cab over. So I don't even have to pick him up.
So is that the one? Is that why you bought all those frames?
Well, I was going to buy him anyhow, but I figured while I'm coming down, I might as well fill the truck up or the trailer. So
You want some more?
I got to see what room I got. I got a 10-foot trailer. It's only got a 5-foot ceiling in there.
Oh,
So
the
I'll
ones
be
you bought
full.
will fill it up.
What's that?
The ones you bought will probably fill that trailer.
Yeah. So last year I bought 800 frames again, and I still had a little room in there for boxes when I bought them, skid of them.
Is that unassembled, right?
I bought a assembled this year.
They're
Bottom
assembled.
assembled.
Yeah, they have acorn foundation in them.
Well, I have four children that are able to assemble frames. The fifth is soon to be able to assemble them. So a little bit of a cost versus.
I have unassembled frames too.
Yeah, I got 1,000 of them on order somewhere. Guess I should try to remember where those are at.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Did not intend on going down this year and got talked into it.
you gotta make, what day you arriving, James?
We'll be heading down Wednesday morning. So should be in by the evening. Knowing me, I won't get on the road until 9-10 o'clock. It's about 6.25 hours from here, I think.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And I'm near Detroit proper, about 10 minutes outside of Detroit.
I just got to get clear weather to get out of Michigan, and I should be fine.
Hopefully, we'll be all right by then.
It looks like it. I don't mind a little snow. It doesn't bother me there.
Yeah, it's gonna be 45 Monday next week.
I'm going to come down and pay homage to Solid Milk Charlie, kiss the ring.
You coming to the party?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Nice to meet everybody in person. Phil from Texas has got me building gift baskets now for next year. I had a bunch of scrap lumber laying around, so I started milling it up, and so he's back into woodworking, keep me busy.
Wow.
Yeah. I was reading the comments here. Yeah, Claiborne. Yeah, I don't. It's nothing. There's no trash in there. I've had that happen before. I think the C connection in there is just. I've having problems getting the phone to charge up. It doesn't want to hold the cord in anymore, so I think it's time.
They can refurb those at a phone shop, Carly.
Yeah, maybe.
Have you tried cleaning the plug out any?
It's clean.
Oh,
I've
okay.
had it where I've had wood chips in there before. You had to take and pick them out.
I was just
Yeah,
thinking
like
about
40
mints or
bucks. They'll
something
just
like
set
that.
up for you.
What's that, James?
$40. They'll fix it up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just need a new phone.
Yeah, well, you got to keep up with the times,
That's right.
especially all us high tech people.
That's right.
So, James, why don't you tell us about the 4th annual virtual winter conference?
Happening February 22nd, 2025. Should be good. A lot of good speakers, focusing on, our typical theme of sustainability, but, looking at the evidence that supports how we can improve our bee stocks, and breeding and selecting
Let me
queens.
bring it up here. Is it there? Can you see it? No, you can't see it because now you can see it. Well, wait a minute. There we go.
Yep.
Did you bring it up, Bill, or did I?
I did.
Now hit the I don't know whether you can get the.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
That was the early bird pricing. The price has gone up since the early bird. It's $55.35 now. So if you're an SBGMI member, you got automatic $20 coupon in the member section. Try to add that as a perk, for the membership that bears with us throughout the course of the year with their $20. There's a lot of other benefits that come along with it, but the conference really is, a good opportunity to hear from, people that are making headway with, better bred bees. And if there's barriers or hurdles in the way, what are some of those things, so we can be thinking about that and collectively as a community focusing on applying that as beekeepers, right? Because you can hear the talks all day long, but how do we practically apply that? So that's kind of the themes behind these conferences. Not everybody is going to agree with everything everybody says, but almost every one of the speakers are going to have something you can take away and say, you know what, I think I can maybe add that this year and start moving that needle forward.
I'll say this, James, the first 3 speakers you've got up there, Melissa Odie and Kristen Trainer and Samantha Alger, they are 3 great speakers.
Yep. Yes. Yep. Excellent speakers and doing excellent research.
Yep.
And Dr. Audi is in Canada this year, so she'll be in our time zone, I believe, which is nice because a lot of the other speakers are going to be across the pond. So there's some logistics with Germany. That's Dr. Trainer and Gable are in Germany. Dr. Alger is in Vermont, so there's no time issue there. And Dr. Monday, Fanny's actually going to be spocked in, if you will, because she won't be available for that date. She will be joining us on the 20th. So it'll be the same talk. So if folks want to catch hers early, they can just come on MLK Day, and it's going to be a little bit of an earlier broadcast. But
so Christian's in Germany now, huh? She was over there training years ago.
Yeah, Hohenheim Institute, I believe.
Yeah. Actually, she came to one of our local club meetings years ago, and she was in Germany previous to that, and then she actually lived in Maryland here for a while. I don't know whether she still has a place here or not,
Mm-hmm.
and all that.
So can anybody join this group, James, or do you have to be a Michigan resident?
So that's the beauty of the SBGMI. The organization is I guess we call it a virtual educational organization. The group, in and of itself, has 700 members, and I'd say about maybe 60% of those are Michiganders, and the other remaining are international. We've got members in Australia, um, Bulgaria, Sweden, New Zealand, Canada, lots of Canadians. We're seeing quite a bit of the German folk coming over. So we have members from almost every corner of the globe so far. And then the Facebook group, is where most people engage socially, and then the monthly speaker meetings. So it's not just the conferences. Every month there's typically a speaker. We bring on somebody that, again, has, a message regarding sustainable practice or how we can reduce our dependence on Varroa treatments or improve our beekeeping practice, largely moving the needle forward for the species as a whole. And so, hey, there's somebody we know. Brian, nice to see you. So those monthly speaker meetings are beneficial, and we get to interact with those speakers and have that access, because your local bee club can sometimes afford to bring some of these folks in. It's mostly cost prohibitive in a lot of ways. So we kind of tried to build our structure around the idea of bringing in those speakers and augmenting what the local groups are doing in local clubs, so they can lean on what we're doing and they can focus on what they're doing well, as opposed to burning resources to get one fancy speaker through the course of the year.
Hey, James, do you feel that you'll be in a better position with trying to do more, treatment-free intentional beekeeping a little better if we ever see trophy laylapse with this? Or has anybody had any discussion about that one?
So
I've read a little bit, but it's kind of over my head, some of it.
I've kind of avoided answering that question a couple of times. I owe somebody an answer on my thoughts on that. But if Dr. Peck just interviewed Dr. Peck from Better Bee, a guy named I think it's Rogan. No, not Rogan. What's his name? Is it Rogan? I can't think of it. Reagan, maybe Reagan. Anyways, he's been doing a lot of work with tropolaelaps in Thailand, and looking at how brood breaks kind of play a role, as well as some of the treatment modalities. Formic is one of the tools that they're trying to use against the tropolaelaps. But I think it's as anything like with varroa mites. If you understand mite biology, you're better armed to deal with these pests from a genetic and molecular standpoint. So whether it be your treatments or mechanical methods, if you know how their biology is working, that gives you a leg up against them. I think if we're breeding resilient bees, especially bees that sniff out varroa, that might be an edge that we have against trophy should we see them in the U.S.
So what do you breed for then? When you're trying to be more treatment free, I know there's a lot of words out there, ankle biters and, VHS and all that's thrown around, but.
Well, the most approachable way for folks is to essentially select from your best stocks and be testing the best stocks. So I did not start out as a beekeeper that treats. I started out as a beekeeper that doesn't treat at all. I was 100% treatment free. And I had about, I'd say 30% average loss over the first few years. And I was around 72% survival rate when I decided that I was going to try to bring my number up a little bit and started treating some of the colonies that washed about 5% mite infestation. So I use 5% as a threshold. If they have 5% infestation in the fall, it's kind of my cutoff, my tolerance. I still think that there's colonies that will survive that infestation. I have had colonies that survive that infestation and actually have resistant mechanisms in there. What are they? That's the question, right? How do we know what it is they're using to survive against the varroa? But if you're trying to have a sustainable apiary, predict your numbers, sell bees, sell honey, you kind of want to know what it is that you're going to be able to expect. You have reasonable expectations of what your outcomes will be. So treating that 15%, that had a higher threshold gave me a 95% survival. So, I mean, we know treatments will help your colony survive, especially if you're doing your treatments correctly. We know treatments will help us get our bees through, but our bees that are coming through may not be the best selected bees for the future of our apiary, the genetics in the region, or just bees in general. So, I use a method called the Harbo assay where I evaluate the brood. It's kind of labor intensive, but I evaluate the brood and I look in there for reproductive mites. And the ones that don't have a lot of reproductive mites are the ones that we select to raise queens from that year and then subsequent years. And you keep doing that and building up that genetic prevalence in your apiaries. And the more drones that you have from those colonies, the better chance every queen you mate has of spreading those genetics to the bees in the whole entire area.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you were completely treatment free. So in there.
Nope, not anymore.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I understand now.
But I keep asking the question: if you treat one hive, you're a treater. If you only have one treatment-free hive, are you treatment-free?
Yeah.
Right. So I think we kind of find, there's a lot of history and baggage with that discussion in both camps. I think we're finally at a place where we're able to have rational discussions around these approaches because there's science that supports what we need to be doing with the bees, but there's also, the desire and the need for people to keep their bees alive, especially if their livelihood is involved. Yep. Yeah, DC doesn't like these labels. We know, DC, we know.
So there's a sustainable group here near me, and they've kind of split a couple of times, and they don't have a real big apiary, and there's like 5 people left in the group, and I don't know what they're doing as far as staying sustainable, but it sounds like you guys are making headway, a lot of headway.
I feel like we are. I mean, our general approach is that at the end of the day, if you want to be a treatment-free beekeeper, we want you to have the tools available to keep your bees alive. But if you also aren't able to be treatment-free, we want you to have the tools that you need in order to trend toward that treatment-free. We just want you to have the willingness or fortitude to move in that direction. And that could be today and tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now. But if you're exploring the idea today, you're at least considering change. That's where we find the bulk of the individuals that are involved. And I think we surveyed our membership last year, and maybe over 80% of the individuals in the Bee Guild are, quote unquote, treating beekeepers. But are they engaging in prophylaxis, which would be like you're not monitoring, you're just on a schedule or a regimen. And what we're seeing is that people who are using prophylaxis are on a schedule or regimen without knowing why, or if there is even a mite infestation, are still having significant losses. So you're not gaining anything in that regard. And so we want to improve the outcomes for them too, and try to change the education surrounding that.
This group, like you, are doing the Harbo testing. They're checking for mites during the Harbo testing. They are introducing, there's a strain of VHS queens here in Virginia that they use specifically for that apiary, and they sell those queens around the state as well. And the apiary itself is self-sustainable. They don't buy bees. They make a lot of their own equipment. And it's, like I said, it's 5 of them left. They're all getting older, and they don't do a lot of things that they used to do. They used to do a lot of education. Now they don't. It's kind of hit or miss when you get a chance to talk to one of them.
Is that Billy's old group?
Billy Davis?
Yeah.
No. It's kind of remarkable the way they do it. They'll go in and cull hives after they do their harbo testing, especially if the mite count's high. They'll go in and they'll cull that hive out, and they'll do away with it if it's not meeting the standards of being sustainable and low mite counts. They're shooting for a mite count of 3% or less. And most of the time they can do it. They do an oxalic acid dribble in December or January if they catch a warm enough day, but that's all they do. They do that one treatment a year, and that's it. So they were very successful at one time, but not so much now because there's just 5 of them. They dip their
you
own
start to lose a
boxes.
little momentum.
Yeah, they dip their own boxes and all that. Everything is dipped. They re-dip every 4 years. So they have
Well,
their
it's
own
not
boxes.
easy. It's definitely not been easy. But in a short period of time, we've made a lot of progress, even with folks who were not. They weren't even thinking that they're going to go with less treatment or even reducing their treatment to none. But they're starting to see that there's a way forward, but it does require a little more elbow grease, and that's the challenge there too. So I try to take the approach of, I don't know if we could say it's a prescriptive, like I could give you an instruction book and this is how you become a successful treatment-free beekeeper. But I think we've been doing a lot of evaluation of what is working for people that are keeping bees in this fashion successfully, and how can we get that information into the hands of others. Because education regarding beekeeping typically trends around treatment first versus the alternative methods, because the alternative methods are often seen from a negative light because there's a lack of demonstrative success of those alternative methods. Rightfully so, you should be leery. If you say, hey, this is the method you should do, but your bees aren't staying alive, I don't know if I want to go that way, right? I want to see something that's predictable, that I can track outcomes, and I can know I got bees to sell in the spring. Does it help me meet my goals? Because let's face it, all sides, all camp members are exploiting their bees to some extent. We're all getting something out of them, and we all have a reason for it, whether it's just enjoying the hobby or making some extra cash to buy more hive bodies. We're all getting something out of them, so we have to come to grips that we're exploiting them in that regard. I know that sounds like a bad word, but it's the truth of the matter. So
It hits it on the head on that one.
yeah,
I agree with that statement 100%, James. Being an educator myself, I teach a lot of bee classes. I teach a lot of advanced classes. I teach a lot of intermediate classes. But I teach more beginners classes than I teach anything else. And I think the mindset is the reason that that type of beekeeping is not taught to beginners, is because we want them to get through the first year or two and have bees that survive through those 2 years, so they get used to keeping them. They've developed a routine, and then it's a point of education to teach that system to them and to introduce reduced treatments and work them into it slowly, because you can't just drop this on them and expect them to do everything perfectly, which nobody does anything perfectly. Don't get me wrong, James. But
right.
if you drop this system on a new beekeeper after 2 years, they're going to fail because they're not going to do something right. They're going to miss something. So you have to introduce them to this slowly. And I think the slow introduction, people will pick it up faster, and people will start to realize, hey, I can do it this way, and I can be successful. And they still
yeah, I would agree.
If they need to fall back on the old system, they can,
right?
Because they know that works for sure. But this is something else that it needs to be introduced slowly to the beekeeping community. And it's starting to work with the VHS queens in this area. And people are realizing that the VHS queens do work. to a point, and sometimes they miss, sometimes
Right.
they don't work, but it's getting better. So we've got a couple of them that are treatment free in the area, and they're in and out of my shop, and you know, they're successful beekeepers,
Mm.
but they stay on it daily. It's
Yeah, it is a lot of work. Right.
it's
Yeah.
a lot of tasks to it. So,
Well,
but they've
so-
been doing it now for years, and they're very successful at it.
I would agree that it is an upward, I think it's an upward battle to keep bees in general. And even new beekeeper education. And I think what I'm after is just a philosophy shift in the plausibility or possibility. And what I mean by that is as a new beekeeper, my first question was, well, why can't I keep bees treatment free? And the answer was always the same, right? And rightfully so, because your bees will die if you don't treat them. And that is typically what most beekeeping classes will focus on. But I don't know, as an educator in the other side of things, I look at teaching my kids or any children in general as little kids, what you give them in the beginning typically is what forms or shapes their philosophy moving forward. And so they get caught up in the trend of whatever it is that their foundation was. And not that that's a bad thing either, but I can teach my child to use their diaper to eliminate, but then I have to untrain that. And it's a battle, right? Eventually they come through it, but they may just give up. And some kids will eliminate in their clothing and their beds well into 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. So
Yeah,
on that third year, a beekeeper typically is gone. Even when they've had this basic education, they leave because either they fail or they weren't able to keep their bees successfully even with treating because they probably weren't treating right. I mean, there's just so many possibilities. So finding a way to integrate a gradual monitoring method, focusing
right.
more on monitoring than prophylactically treating. So you're still getting getting your preference. You're still teaching them what they need, Bill. But now we're making sure that they're monitoring and wait, there could be resistant stock in your apiary, but if you're not looking, you won't know. So bringing them both together. And you mentioned that 3% threshold, and that's key too, because what I'm finding is across the board, colonies with 3% and less infestation have a higher possibility of being resistant. Not saying that just because it's 3% they are, but that's like a way to select your colony for further evaluation.
Yes.
But we're typically saying 2%, treat those suckers. But that 2% can be a resistant colony. And the mites that are in there are infertile mites. They're not even reproducing. So there's
Right.
mites, they're going to be in there, but they're not reproducing, and we might treat them, and we don't know if we have resistant stock. So
Right.
finding that crossroad between where you're at, Bill, right, and where we're hoping folks will get, I think is going to move the needle forward exponentially for beekeeping education, because now we're learning how to get along with both perspectives and integrate it into one.
Right. And the reason I said what I said about the education point is because typically if a beekeeper fails at any point during the first 2 years, there is no third year. The beekeepers that get through those first 2 years and they've been successful in those 2 years, now that third year, they're willing to try something new. And this sustainable beekeeping, that's what I call it, sustainable beekeeping, is a way, and it can be started as an intermediate class to give them a choice as to what
Right.
they want to do. And then once they are successful, say for a season, with the intermediate beekeeping of this type of sustainable beekeeping, then you can move them into the advanced and say, okay, we're going to build on your knowledge that you've gained for this past year. And now we're going to teach you this part of it. So now you can even be more successful because there are a bunch of groups around here that do the Harbo testing.
That's
There's
great.
also-
That's great news.
There's also a bunch of groups around here that use the
UBO.
UBO testing. The UBO testing is not as accurate as the Harbo testing because I had one of the Harbo guys borrow my UBO gun
Is
and he tried.
not, yeah. What's that?
I had one of the Harbo guys borrow my UBO gun and tried it, and then he went back 3 weeks later and did his regular Harbo testing. The UBO testing is not as accurate as the Harbo testing.
Yeah, there's
So-
some crossover between the two, but they're not
Yes.
necessarily identifying the same thing.
Right. So he stuck with his Harbo testing, and I did some UBO testing on my hives, and I found them all to be in the 65 percentile area.
That's good.
And that was good. And now I'm going to be honest, I treat 4 times a year. But yet the bees were in the 65th percentile.
Which
So-
means that there's hygienic behavior in your population.
Yes, there is.
Mhm.
It's something new for me as well. And I'm reading about it and learning about it as I go. So next year, maybe I'll do some Harbo testing. I don't know.
I would recommend this book from just came out earlier this year. It's called the I don't want to misquote it. So Stephen Riley is the author, and he's a beekeeper from the UK. And the book is called The Honeybee Solution to Varroa, I think. Don't quote me because I don't want to gossip. Yeah, The Honeybee Solution to Varroa, a practical guide for beekeepers. So this book is on Amazon for $25 from Northern Bee Books. But if you order it from Amazon, you don't have to ship it across the pond. But this book is probably it's a very descriptive book. It gives you evidence and it gives you practical application, the kind of stuff that the SBGMI focuses on. And probably one of the first books that I think in the treatment-free vein gives you that kind of instructive type approach. Whereas a lot of, the treatment-free books talk about it, but they don't really give you like, how can I take this as a beekeeper and go turn around and apply it to my apiary?
Right.
People have to remember when we say, at least when I say it, and I think a majority of folks that are in the treatment-free realm, when we say that, we are saying that we want to see resistant bees, better bred bees that handle Varroa on their own,
Correct.
as opposed to just saying anti-chemical. Anti-chemical might be part of some people's disposition, but in principle, we all want to see better bees that don't need all of these props.
Right.
So-
And I agree. And Tom, to answer your question, it was done. We do a cycle where we treat end of March, first part of April in the spring. So we wait until mid-June to do that UBO testing. That gives that Formic Pro a chance to totally dissipate in the hive. And it's basically treatment-free for about a month and a half. And then we did that UBO testing. So we caught it mid-cycle towards the end of the cycle before we treated in July. I hope that answered your question, Tom. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but
Philip was asking about, are we looking for bees that remove bees that
Now-
tolerate mites or remove them? So I said yes, because it's both, right? Like So when you do a Harbo assay, unlike UBO is evaluating that hygienic propensity, like the uncap, recap, or brood removal, which is similar to the freeze-killed brood assay, where you're evaluating the bees in your colony and whether they remove sick brood.
Yeah.
And while freeze-killed is not the same as UBO, Kara says UBO is more sensitive than freeze-killed. The UBO is evaluating that hygienic nature in your colony. But the evidence is showing in resistant populations across the globe in all places, when they find these bees that are surviving and tolerating, as Phil said, tolerating varroa loads, they're finding that those colonies are doing uncap, recap, and are removing brood and disrupting the varroa reproduction cycle. So it's a combination of things. UBO is measuring that uncap, recap, and that overlap might be there where the bees are removing varroa or brood with varroa in it, but the Harbo is evaluating the end result. So you may be evaluating uncap, recap. You might be evaluating what they call brood odor. So the juvenile hormones in the varroa mites trigger the bees to inspect it. And so these bees are sensitive to the smells that are coming off of the varroa mites.
Yes.
Not necessarily the dead or sick brood. They smell the mites. And we've known this for 30 years. Or at least when they first started finding the varroa sensitive hygiene, the researchers speculated that the worker bees, were smelling the varroa. And it turns out, according to Dr. Monday, Fanny Monday, who's one of the speakers, they were right.
I wish we'd have known all this information 30 years ago. But, you know, in the long run, I guess what I'm getting at is, having been an educator for 20 years and have taught many beginning beekeepers, they always come back, and after that 2 years, the ones that are successful, and say, I want to know more. That's your opportunity, my opportunity, and the education community as a whole. That's our opportunity to start teaching. If you want to learn about sustainable beekeeping and clean beekeeping, now's the chance to teach it.
Yeah, but a majority of the SBGMI members are 3 years or more of experience.
Yeah. So we have to teach it in such a way, though, that it's not all science-based.
Right.
Because there are beekeepers out here that could care less about the science. They want to know how to do it. They're the hands-on beekeepers that want to know how to do it. They don't care about the science. They just want good bees in the end.
So that would be Dr. Gable's talk for the conference in February. Dr. Gable will talk about that, brood interruptions, and that practical application to reduce your varroa loads without chemical dependence, or at least reducing that dependence. Yeah.
But I do, Loma Vista, I think to answer to come back to your statement is this. I don't think finding the cures is where science needs to move. If we find a way to have clean bees, the bees will take care of the diseases themselves. Because once you get rid of the mites, or as many mites as possible out of the hives, and using the VHS lines, the bees will take care of the disease. You'll see those lessen. They won't ever go away, but they will lessen. And they won't be as prevalent being spread by the varroa mite. That's just my opinion on the outside looking in, and you know what they say about opinions. So, but that's how I would come back to Todd.
Well, how many Harbo tests are you doing in the yard? Are you just picking out a couple random, or one, or?
Last year we had 80, 7 hives in the yard, and I did 15% of them. And that gave me enough data to extrapolate for the rest of the yard. I don't do 100%. Some people do 50. We've got one guy right here who does 100% of his hives, and it takes him 2 weeks to do all the Harbo testing. So by the time he's done, he's got to go back and check the hives. So
So
But
if you were a new beekeeper and you wanted to learn how to do a Harbo, my suggestion would be get the mite washing down and the monitoring down first.
Yep.
Use your mite washes as a way to determine what colonies you should do a Harbo assay on. If you're interested in finding resistant stock in your yard and you haven't imported any stock from a qualified breeder, and you just for kicks and giggles want to see what your stock is doing because you want to keep that local emphasis, by all means, find a way to pare it down. If you've got 50 hives, it's a lot of work to do 50 assays. You can do it. It is possible. The average 20 minutes per assay is about right. But if you don't want to do all 50 colonies, go wash all of them and pick 10% of the best performers and start there. And that's the key, starting somewhere. And then the more you do, the better you get at it. And the more you're going to see. And the more assays that I'm doing, the more I'm seeing going on in the brood that we don't have answers for. Because, you can start with a rubric, but then the bees start changing stuff up on you. And I've done several hundred, maybe 300-400 assays over the last few years. And there's always something new that's popping up. And I'm asking myself, what is that? Where did that come from? But we're still moving forward and we're learning as we go and then adopting and adapting that strategy towards selecting better bees. And if I can bring a few colonies from somebody like Corey Stevens or another BSH breeder into my apiary, I shave 10 years off of the breeding timeline. And I start adding those genetics more promptly, and I'm using the work that's already been done by somebody who's been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. And I'm already seeing that impact in my apiaries where I'm mating local stock and getting resistant stock back from the drone population because in just 3 short years of implementing these methods, my resistant stock's gone through the roof. And I'm not isolated. I'm in an urban area. There is mite pressure. I can show you mite washes that are 50 and 60. Some are ridiculously high. And so those colonies they're getting mites. There's mites around, but they're also resisting these mites. Good night, Mac.
Night, Tom. Merry Christmas, buddy. I'll see you at Nobby. So I agree.
Charlie's fading. Charlie's fading.
Nah, I'm okay.
You need your popcorn injection?
Nah, I'm good. I got.
But James, I do agree with you 100% on everything you've said. And it's...
Don't tell my wife.
Oh, yeah, don't tell mine either. But, we get down to the point of education. That's always the sticking point, is the education. And we've got to get the beginning beekeepers out here successful first. Then bring them into the sustainable side of beekeeping and get them to realize, and even the older beekeepers, especially here in the valley, getting them to realize that the science plays a part in beekeeping. Because those are the ones that tell me, I don't care about the science, just tell me how to get clean bees. Tell me how to get rid of the varroa mite. Teach me. And of course, then you get them in a class and it's, oh, well, I don't want to know the science. And then they quit. They don't come back to class. So they just want the down and dirty facts, so to speak. Now, I know Virginia Tech and the state of Virginia are doing a research project right now. And they are testing VHS queens. They supply the VHS queens. And they distribute them throughout the state. The study's been going on now for 4.5 years, and it's starting to wind down. I think next year is the last year. and we'll have 5 years worth of data on this thing. And then tech is going to compile all the data and do all the other work that needs to be done with the data. And we should have a really good graph of data after that. And once it's published, I don't know if you have any ties with Extension in Michigan, but they should be able to get that data from Virginia Tech as well for your group. And now, if you talk to anybody that deals with me and buys queens for me, I use Latshaw queens. That's my breed. That's what we sell. And that's why we're here. That's what we do. That's what we breed, are the Latshaw queens. And they're bred for laying, overwintering, temperament, and hygienic qualities. So those are the big four that we breed for. So my queens do have that tendency, but I don't get rid of a queen if they don't. So,
Well, guys, I got one of those Charlie phones. I got to go find my charger in there. I just wanted to really jump on and say Merry Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the expo down there.
yeah, pick up is either first or last day, Roy.
Right, I'm gonna try to grab everything the first day, so I see what room I have left in there. I could squeeze some more in there. I might do some more buying
Okay.
in there. So I'm gonna jump off and grab the chat as soon as I find my charger. So,
All right.
See you,
like I said, Merry Christmas,
Bye,
everybody.
Roy. Merry Christmas. So Phil, before this year, when he used AP tablets, I've controlled mites with OAV. I've lost one hive in the winter in over 4 years, and lose about 10 to 20% in August in dearth. So, what do you think his solution is, James?
Now he's in Texas too,
He's in Texas.
where they don't have a lot of water.
I think it's getting a little hot down there for the bees, and that's what's doing them in.
I don't understand what the question is.
Come on in here, Philip, and explain your question.
And then Mark here, Mark Miller, he's a breeder. He works with Corey.
Yeah, I do. I'm open to trading virgins. Yeah. Now we're gonna get marked by Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always happy to send queens out. I don't mind sharing. I've had some good ones this last couple of years. There's been some really good ones.
Yeah, we usually get good queens. Last year it wasn't much because of the drought that we had in here. So we had a real bad drought last year.
Hey, Phil. So what were you saying?
I was just saying that I just don't see the losses that I guess other people see, but I might see a lot. I don't get much honey either, so I may just have weak, sick colonies that just make it. I don't know. But
What were you correlating with the apitabs?
Well, I'm just saying that I used to be able to say I've never used anything but OAV, but this past fall, I threw in some Appy tablets, and there was a significant mite drop off of those Appy tablets. I'm just qualifying what I've done over 4 years. I'm not saying one thing good or bad or whatever about Appy. I'm just letting you know that I hadn't solely used oxalic acid vapor. That's all that. That's all that was.
Which the Appy tablets have a certain amount of thymol in them.
Thymol, yeah.
13%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 13% thymol, and there's some. I think there's some eucalyptus or something else in there too.
Yeah. The only reason I use those is because out at my farm, I don't get back often enough to give enough OAV treatments to really control the mites. So that's what I liked about the Appy tablets, is something you can just put on there and you can come back in 3 weeks or whatever.
Well, Charlie's going to shoot me because of what I'm going to say right now. So maybe he's far enough away and he won't hear me. But one thing I found this year with OAV is I was using 4 grams last year. I had to add an extra tablet to it this year because it didn't even hold the mites in the fall at 4 grams. So I added that extra tablet. So I guess it went to 6. And I'll know here in 3 or 4 weeks what it did, but I'm pretty sure the 6 is either going to hold it or a little bit of mite kill.
6 grams of OA.
Yep.
That's what I've been doing for years.
Because the 4 that I did back in the fall, it didn't do anything. So
Now, when you say fall, what month is that?
September.
It's too early. You got too much brood in your hive.
Yep.
How many times were you hitting them, Bill?
Once.
Oh yeah, that's not gonna do it. That's not gonna do hardly anything in the fall when you hit them once.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, now here in Maryland, I got frames of brood in September and October. And he's not that far from me. And even though he's in Virginia, weather isn't quite that different. I don't even
had
start.
no brood on the end of September. We had none.
Really?
Really? Wow.
Yep. No brood.
If I'm going to have a broodless time, it's going to be in August because the heat will shut those queens down, and the drought.
In your area.
Yeah. So I really need to get my OAV treatment a little bit earlier because I think I could take advantage of that.
Now, do you use insulation?
Who wants to get out there with a hot steaming thing and a mask and all that in August in Texas? That's
That's
do you
brutal.
insulate the roof of your hives there at Bill?
They're
Yeah,
painted white.
I do. I have I think I estimate my roofs to be about an R7 the way I build them.
They're tempting me on the APA tablets.
What's that?
I said the APA tablets, sore subject.
I know, and that's a very controversial. I saw where other people were getting drops on them, so I put them on, and I got the same result. It looked like
you're getting drops. So they do definitely give you drops.
It looked like the day after an OA vapor treatment is what it looked like. Maybe a little better because I actually did it not too long after an OAV, maybe a week or so after, and I got significant drops over and above what the OAV did. Now maybe a bunch more mites hatched out. I don't know.
Yeah, the thymol is the active ingredient, right? So you're going to get mite kill on the initial, like the initial fumes in the colony, and then if they're because it is also it's a giant sugar cake, so the thymol is infused into the sugar cake, so they're going to carry that out down through the brood nest as well, but they're not going to affect any mites that are in the capping, same as the OAV. So now you've got this sugar cake of thymol. Now in Texas, in the middle of summer, that could be to your detriment because that thymol is going to have an adverse reaction under those heat conditions. You should have a far lower dose in the heat. And if it's not a dearth, guess what they're doing with that thymol?
Yeah, I wouldn't compare it to Apigard. It's not anywhere near that potent.
No.
Coming from the Apitab. It's not even close.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I'm
absolutely sure. Because
one Apitab is the same as a 25 gram tub of Apigard.
I don't have any experience with Apigard. I got some over in a drawer there that's like 5 years old, and I think one of the little foil things came open, and you can't open the drawer because it'll knock you out. Okay, and the Apitab has never even come close, not even a tenth of that smell. So I know that's very low tech.
The instructions on Apigard changed 2 years ago. So now, if it's above 77 degrees, you're only supposed to give a 25 gram dose for 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, those packages over there. I came close to using them once, but it was above 95, and they said don't use it above 95.
So it used to be above 95, you didn't use it, and below 50, you didn't use it. Then they changed the instructions after they did further testing. A few years ago, before they changed the instructions to below 70 or above 77, they raised that upper temperature threshold to 104. And then 3 years ago, they changed it to anything above 77 degrees, you give 25-gram dose in the first 3 days of the treatment. After the first 3 days, you could do, if it was below 77 degrees, you could do the full 50. If it was going to be below 77 for the first 3 days.
Yeah. Now this is just me being contrarian, which I can do sometimes. I shouldn't be speaking about things I've never tried, obviously, but it just seems to me like everything I hear about Apigard, Formic Pro, all these things that off gas and they say it kills them below the cappings. My brain goes, does it really, or does it force a brood break? Which a brood break lowers mite count. Because everybody also says they feel like the queen stops laying when that stuff goes in the colony. So
the reason that you're not getting an off-gas smell on the Apple tablet is because the matrix is sugar, whereas the matrix that's in the Apigard allows the off-gassing to occur at a controlled rate. And so if you have a sugar brick in your colony with the thymol in it, you're still getting that off-gas function, maybe not as quickly or as controlled. It might be higher or less, but the bees are also going to be removing it, especially if they're in a nectar flow, because it's just debris in the colony. So it may not have its effectiveness. What I would share with everybody is, take a look at how much it costs for a 25-gram dose of Apigard and how many of those you can get for every Appa tablet you buy. And then you have a controlled application versus an uncontrolled application that's more dependent on the bees. So you're changing your variables significantly with the Appatab versus the.
So when would you recommend that I use that?
Apigard?
Yes.
Apigard should be applied when the temperatures are appropriate. So, and you can use 25 grams, 25 mils, and then 50 mils. I think
Right.
Bob Binney even shuts down swarming tendencies with a 25 mil dose.
Yeah.
Well, that's in my opinion, that's my only option. But I feel like that I don't have a mite load at that time of year. Okay. Now,
Which
if I
time
use
is it? What month are we talking, Phil?
What's that?
What month?
That would be March, April.
Yeah.
Right in there. So I wouldn't have a mite load anyway at that time of year, a significant mite load. But if I use Apigard when they say the temperature's right, now I'm shutting down my queen when she needs to be making her winter bees.
Yep,
so that's going to be detrimental.
That's one of the unique challenges of Apigard. That's one of the problems with Apigard.
I have yet to have it shut a queen down.
Really?
Yep.
And what I've heard of people who do use it, it might shut it down for 2 or 3 days. It doesn't shut it down for those 4 weeks.
No.
Right.
And
it's not prolonged. Yeah.
The reason you're seeing that brood break either before or after you use it, bees are cannibalistic. There's nothing coming in the hive in end of July through about middle to end of August. There's nothing coming in other than pollen. Bees are cannibalistic. They will eat the eggs and the young larvae. So you're seeing what you consider to be a brood break. It's not a brood break. The queen's still laying.
I've never used it. I just what I'm hearing from other people.
But
I don't have any direct knowledge of it.
Formic acid occurs in honey. Okay. Formic Pro is used in the spring for a spring treatment to get that mite count knocked down to an acceptable level, because you're not going to treat again until July, August. That's when your mite counts are on the rise, at least in Virginia. That's what I have to go on. Your mite counts are on the rise. they're at their highest point near the end of August, and the bees are starting to decline. So you want to catch that treatment at just the right time.
Which treatment is that, Bill?
Apiguard. You want to catch that treatment at just the right time when your mite level's high and your bees are declining anyway, because you're in a brood break, or what you think is a brood break.
Yeah, but for most people, that's August, right?
Yep, it's
Yeah,
August.
it's not an
So-
option for. It's just it's 100 degrees here in August.
Yeah, so if it's 100, it's usually around in the 90s here with a high humidity, because we're in the mid-Atlantic states. So what we do is we do the 25 mil or 25 gram treatment
for 4 weeks.
for 2 to 4 weeks. At the end of it, we do a mite count. Typically, at the end of it, when the mite count is done, we're either at 0 or 1%. And then the queen kicks off laying in September and lays up through around here. I've still got queens laying in my Enel hives, so, and I've got pretty fat bees.
Yeah, I mean the September would be the first time that we're down in the low to mid 90s.
Yeah.
That'd be
So
the first, and that might be the end. That might be the tail end of September.
So
and,
do you
and our queens will lay pretty heavily all the way. We actually get a little bit of a fall. I don't want to call it a flow, but we get a boost because the queens come back and lay up,
Yep.
get full frames of brood and everything else in the fall.
we do get a fall flow here. We get goldenrod, and typically the raspberries are late bloomers, and the blackberries are late bloomers, and there's something else that blooms on the fence rows. I can't remember what it is. And then we get tree of heaven is usually held over a little bit sometimes. It depends on the drought. So we've got a fall flow, but we don't collect that fall flow. That's all for the bees. Because typically honey is done. We pull honey July 4th weekend because of the spotted lanternfly.
Yeah, you got to find a groove that works for you, Phil.
Peter,
Yep.
yeah.
well,
I mean, I'm not dissatisfied with how I do that. How I do things.
and where you live at, Phil, do you actually get snow or anything like that? I mean, do you actually have
Like we get snow like once every 3 years, and it lasts about a day and a half, maybe.
and
We got-
what's the temperatures? Let's say October, November, December. Like right now, what's the daytime temperature?
Well, it's
I can
all
tell you
over
right
the
now.
place.
Today it was 25.
It's all over the place.
Is
All
it
over the
50,
place
is it
in
50
December.
degrees out there, or 70 degrees, or what?
Well, it can be 70 and it can be 30, but it's right now. Make sure this is updating. We've got rain on the way, and it's 64 right now, and it's been dark for 2 hours, 3 hours. Actually.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is I've talked to Brian from down at Cajun Home down in Louisiana, and they're talking about, it's too hot for let's say the formic or the apricot. I said, you guys have to learn to treat your bees more so in the what we call as the winter months, because you're down at Cajun Homestead, he's got brood 3 frames of brood 12 months out of the year. So
We
really
don't have that much here, but
he needs to treat more in the winter time, what we call winter here in Maryland.
yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of have to figure out the temperature, the different types of temperature depending on what time of the year it is. It's all local type thing.
Well, I did OAV, let's see, 8 days ago. And I went out the next day, and I was a little concerned because I was seeing about 100-ish mites on the counting boards. But then when I did it 4 days later, now I'm down to seeing some with none, most with about 5, and probably 2 or 3 of my colonies. This is out of like 12 colonies, and a couple of them that had probably 10 to 20. So there were mites in there. They just were all exposed. So I knocked them back pretty good.
Hey, James,
So that means I don't have a whole lot of brood for sure.
Apimon?
The
Yeah,
Happy
this-
tablets.
yeah.
Oh, Happy tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now in this area here, James, they recommend the AP tablets in the fall and winter for the
Yeah,
summer.
I'm not sticking one of those tablets in my colony during winter time. I think that's
I get it. I understand.
that's a bad
But I'm
that's a
just
bad
saying,
move.
That's what they recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is it's being billed as a supplement, and it's beekeepers know and are using it as a treatment. But my argument is, and like a treatment that's equitable and cheaper is Apogard, and it's got more evidence and research supporting its application and efficacy, as well as instructions on use. And somebody mentioned instructions can be vague, and this is true. There's some issues with that, but a lot of the studies behind it show its efficacy in these various applications, especially for northern beekeepers. But the tablets don't have any of that, and we're flying blind with that. So we're reinventing a treatment we already have on the market. I agree with DC that the Apogard is tricky. But
Okay, let's go. I'll tell you what, James, and let's do OAV with 1 gram. Let's follow the label.
yeah,
And our bees are our bees are dead. We followed the labels, and our bees are dead.
1
But
gram
what
per brood box.
we can say, oh, it's been tested and it's scientifically proven and all this other nonsense.
Yeah,
No,
but actually,
valid argument, but the research demonstrates that the label on oxalic acid needs to be adjusted. And Easy Ox has been able to successfully get the label adjusted to 2 grams. And the science has demonstrated the 2 grams efficacy per brood box. If you're using OAV 2 grams per brood box, and here's the kicker, right? If you're raising stock that is not mite farming, these doses are efficacious. If you have susceptible stock, there's not a lot any of these treatments can really do against these susceptible stocks. So we have to have a reduction on that in some capacity, and genetics are key to that. Otherwise,
I definitely don't mean to come on here and poo-poo any of the work you're doing or the work Corey's doing.
You're good, man.
I think that's where it needs to be. I really do. My point is for all of us hacks out there that aren't going to do all that stuff, we got to do something, to get by until you guys can save us with really good genetics. But
well, it's just like for me now, I used Aprivar and was tested with the National Honeybee Survey. The evidence came back where definitely it doesn't really work much anymore. And now I got to get into using Aprigard, and I want to really kind of use it in July, and I'm skittish about, I know I want to put 25 grams in. I just, everybody, I know, Phil, you were not much on formic. Well, I use formic in September, and there's a cool spell of about 2 weeks, low humidity. And it's usually, I always tell people in my videos, 85 degrees or less. And I have not lost queens and stuff. I've always had positive, and that's a full dose. That's the 2 strips.
I got nothing against Formic Pro or Apogard. I wish conditions were right for me to be able to use them like other people do. I really do. And I would. I just don't see that they are based on the way I understand it.
Heat of the quote summertime.
Yeah.
I think it'd probably be good for you.
I think if I wait till it cools off, I think the mites are starting to overtake my bees in August, just like it is everybody else's, because my bees they shut down and the mites are all out, and they can't get into the brood, so they're getting on the bees and doing that thing. So, I probably have a reduction in mites toward the end of that, because the mites they're probably affecting the bees, but they're not actually reproducing that much because there's not that much brood for them to reproduce in at that time of year.
Bill Lee made the perfect statement, and his statement was, we can treat all, and we can do what we can do, but if you have a neighbor down the road that's not an educated beekeeper, and he's a bee haver, and he just sets his bees in the field and doesn't do anything with them, it's a mite bomb that's sitting there ticking, waiting to go off. And now the problem that we thought we had controlled either through hygienics or through treatment. Now this mite bomb goes off, and now we're back where we started. No matter what we're doing. So I think the main point of the whole thing, I just did a newsletter article on this whole thing of education. And I think the main thing is, regardless of what we're going to do, whether we're going to treat or we're going to be sustainable with no treatment and hygienics, both work. We know they both work. We need to pick an education point and teach it.
Yeah, well, I asked the question that in the comments part came on, but what do you mean by sustainable?
Yeah, there's a buzzword.
Sustainable beekeeping. When I say sustainable beekeeping, it's bees that regenerate themselves, that are mite resistant, or they're VHS type bees, and they will sustain themselves from year to year with those types of practices.
Okay. That I'm glad you cleared that up, because in my mind, sustainable is I can tolerate. I'm sustainable like Jeff Horchoff is. I can tolerate 40% bee loss because I'm going to go catch a bunch of bees. I'm going to split all my bees. I'm just going to overtake that with managed practices that increase my counts to account for that loss. That's what my mind thinks sustainable is. So I'm glad you were able to clear up your meaning, because you were confusing the heck out of me every time you'd use that term. I was going, wait a minute. You're talking about bees handling varroa, but you're saying, well, we just got to outbreed the varroa. So
yeah, but I think Brian Flower out in Colorado is sustainable bees or sustainable practices.
It's both.
Okay.
I think sustainable practices
That's
are
what I'm talking about, and he's talking about sustainable bees. Okay.
Clear.
Sustainable practices leads to sustainable bees. So it's a combination of both.
Sorry, Bill.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So interesting study on the word of sustainability when it entered into our vernacular. At least the prevalence, the increased use of the word is off the charts. This word sustainable is out of control as far as we use it for everything and anything. It's a way to say that we're doing it better, right? And sustainability has to be on a scale for the individual. What is sustainable for you and your goals? And this is where I think I've tried to co-opt the term to lean more toward treatment-free friendly, because I feel you can be treatment-free and sustainable. I think that it is possible. I know it's possible because I've been able to do it in my short time as a beekeeper. But compared to others, you know what I'm saying? There's people who've been doing their sustainable version for 50 years versus 10 years, whichever. But that term sustainable for me means that the honeybees have to be a primary participant in the process in order for sustainability to have an impact on beekeepers for the long term. Otherwise, we're all in trouble as an industry because, like you said, Bill, the mites are just they're changing the dynamic on us, and the viruses are also changing the dynamic.
Well, if you think about it, look at the wild honeybees or the bees that get away, swarms that get away. Look at them. They more than likely they have a heavy mite load. They're dealing with those mites somehow. I know where there's a house that we call it a swarm house. It's full of wild bees. And when you catch them, you do a mite wash, it's below 5%. So somehow those bees are dealing with those mites and those mite loads, and we need to figure out how they're doing it and why they're doing it. If that is a more sustainable type of bee or a more hygienic bee, then maybe we need to look at what they are and how they got there. Because if you think about it, the varroa mite, Charlie brought it up earlier, apivar. I remember when varroa mites hit Virginia in 1990. Nobody knew anything about them. Nobody knew how to get rid of them until one day the state apiars came by and threw a bunch of apivar at us and said, put this in your hives. Well, what did we do? We put 5 and 6 strips per hive. We overdosed the bees. We overdosed. We kept those things in there year round. We didn't know if it was going to hurt the honey or not, but we put them in there and we knocked the mite loads down. But now they have developed that resistance because of the type of being that they are. They changed their DNA in months. I compare them to a fruit fly, which can change their DNA in a matter of an hour, in a matter of hours. So the mite can change their DNA in a matter of months, maybe a year. So overuse of any type of chemical or any type of treatment, overusing it, what's it going to do? It's going to create a resistance. And I think that's we've seen over the years. Bill, you made this comment. 1 gram of OA doesn't work. 2 grams don't work. I went to 6 this year. I know other beekeepers that are at 4. They're considering going to 6. So it's the same thing is happening here. That's what I see happening. So what do we do about it?
No, that's
We need to find that hygienic bee, that golden bee, which I think the group in Michigan is working on, and they're closer to it than anybody else is. So,
We're trying.
yeah, I mean, something's got to give, or we're going to be out of, and the people that do treat are going to be SOL because there's not going to be any treatments left.
Well, that's like I commented earlier when I got enticed by Charlie, is that, you know, if anybody remembers, everybody remembers during COVID early on, the media was showing us all of the ships offshore, and it was Christmas time, right? So very timely. And they were talking about how all of these ships with all of our goods on them were going to make it difficult for us to access Christmas presents. So we needed to hurry up and get our shopping in, or else Christmas is going to, you know, be screwed. And I looked at those pictures of those ships, and I live outside Detroit, so there was pictures of the trucks lined up across the Blue Water Bridge into Canada, and the bridge across the Detroit River, Jiminy Cricket. I'm getting old. I can't remember the name of the Ambassador Bridge, and all of these trucks lined up at customs and these ships off the shore. And I'm sitting here going, if my bees needed treatment and my treatments are on those ships and in those trucks, and Formic's coming out of Canada, so my Formic's sitting on the trucks. If all of our stuff comes to a point where we can't access our treatments, what's going to happen to our bees? What's going to happen to the whole entire population of the bees in our industry that are necessary for our agriculture, for our food systems? Like, so this goes back to the idea of sustainability. Like, the whole system starts to fall on its head when one piece of it fails. And if our treatments are on those trucks and your bees are dead, now none of us have bees. So we have to be working toward a solution where if our treatments are stuck on those trucks, our bees will be moderately okay, and we have methods and means to work with them and the Varroa, and they're capable of maintaining themselves even with mechanical manipulation because we can't treat them.
Well,
Otherwise, we're stuck.
you might be seeing that in February.
That's what
Because
that's what kicked off the chat. Yeah, the tariffs.
Oh, was it? Yeah, y'all might have heard the same video I did, but there was somebody sounding the alarm that they're going to be about 40% low on almond population bees this year. That's what they're predicting. And the price is going to skyrocket for nukes. And they say they think it's going to be the worst in like 30 years or something. So we'll see. But it could be like those ships off the coast. It may not be near as bad as they're saying it's going to be.
We got drones. Brian says we got drones now. They can go get them off this ship.
Brian, that's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
So I listened to, I wish I had written it down, but there was a nice couple. They have a really nice organic farm and he raises bees. I think that's where he gets his income because he's got like 250 beehives. And he was treatment free. And he was losing about 40% of his bees per year. And he really learned how to split bees. So that didn't take him down. Then he went about 4 years like that. And then all of a sudden, he had a 95% loss.
Oh, Troy Hall.
Oh, is that who it was? Okay.
Yep.
Well, no, it wasn't Troy Hall. I follow him. He's a commercial beekeeper, right?
Yeah, he had.
Yeah, no, this was a couple.
They're
Oregon or somewhere like that.
Oregon, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen them on YouTube.
So anyway, the reason the person was interviewing him is with some other old theory that it's a way of living, holistic way of living.
They wrote the book Raising Resilient Bees. Eric and
yes, that's them.
Diggable.
I was really
hippies.
I was really interested in how he managed his bees, and I was really interested in when he talked about how he made his queens and made his splits. He does it without
Eric's
grafting.
good people. Yeah, he's good people.
Yeah. No, and he had to bite his tongue a lot during that interview because there's certain things he couldn't say, or they would just cut the interview off, and it was over because the interviewer had things she wanted, buzzwords that she wanted to hear and things to get said, but it was still a great interview because he was brutally honest about the experience. And but it just really made me think that, okay, people that don't need their bees to make a living, it's a lot easier for you to be treatment free. But as soon as you have a loss like he had that year, and that's all the income basically you have, you've got to come up with something. And he went to extended release pads. And he's gotten I think he says he's down to less than 20% maybe losses now with his extended release. So thought that was interesting. But he's
I don't know. I looked at that and he had a lot of different words or different terms.
Yes.
When I'm like, well, what you're really saying in my terminology is you did walk away splits.
Yes.
Or you let the darn bees make their own queens. I like, well, we've been doing that for years. You haven't discovered anything new. And then he was saying about waxing. Now he somehow, I don't know how he did it. He only waxed the outside of his boxes. And I'm like, what's that got to do with either inside or out? You got to dip them and pull the moisture out and the wax goes in. I don't know whether that has anything to do with anything.
They did use different terms, but
I didn't see really, he didn't do grafting and let them make their own queens and stuff like that, which is fine. But I don't know. I just didn't see anything.
Well, he did talk about how but I can't remember. Did he move the queens or leave them in place and make splits off of them? I can't remember. I got to go back and listen to it again.
I think he might have went to another yard or something.
Sophie, get the door, please. Hold on, guys. I've got.
So anyway,
Well, I think this has been a good discussion tonight. Real good discussion.
Sorry, guys. I had somebody come to the door. Let me take care of that real quick.
well, we're getting ready to get out of here, I believe.
Yeah, not long. James, I do want to invite you to a bee club meeting here in Virginia.
Oh, sure.
We meet on the odd months, so it may be March or May. Meetings start at 7 o'clock, I think. I don't remember. My wife's the president. But if I could get you to Zoom in, that would be great. And
Sure.
talk about this. Because the past president by 2 was part of that group of sustainable beekeepers. And that's
It'd be good to hear more about them too.
Yeah, that's what they call the group, sustainable beekeepers. So
They maybe had a website at one point. I think remember they may have had a Facebook group too, but it's been kind of quiet for a while.
it's been very quiet for a very long time.
Hmm.
So the last time I even talked to the guy that's running it now was 3 years ago. They bought a couple thousand frames from me. And that was the last time I heard from them. So I don't know if they're still kicking or not. So, but yeah,
Well, they could have had a big crash too.
Yeah. So if you go to Shenandoah Bee Supply, my email's on there. Shoot me an email with your contact information on it, and I'll have.
Yeah, I got your phone number too.
Okay, good. So, yeah, I'd love to have you come to a bee meeting.
Well, I'm gonna get out of here too, but let me do this. We've got a solstice treat, if you will. We've given away 30 memberships to the Bee Guild, free memberships. So if you sign up, it's free. Use the coupon code in the checkout for the SBGMI. You get access to all the member benefits. And then that qualifies you for a discount on the virtual conference. I'm gonna let me put the code here in the chat on StreamYard. I'm not sure.
Go ahead.
Probably not. Might have to
Yeah,
have the
so
YouTube.
so there's the coupon code in the chat, and you can sign up for the membership
Oh yeah, it did. Okay.
at sbgmi.org. So anybody, it's free. So no strings attached. You'll get an email reminder to renew in 1 year from the date you sign up, but it won't automatically charge you. It'll just tell you, hey, send us some money. But yeah, that'll give you a free year. You'll get subscribed to the newsletter and all the stuff that's going on with it. And if
SGMI.
S is in Sam, B is in boy, G is in girl, M is in Montana, I is in indigo.org. And the coupon code is Solstice Treats.
Okay.
So there's 8 coupons left right now, but if anybody doesn't get it and tries, just reach out. We'll offer some more scholarships here soon. So
Is that it right there? Did I put in
in the
SGMI?
sdgmi.org.
Oh, SDGMI.
It's in the chat.
We're at
And the YouTube chat.
SB? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
SD. Okay, I was about to mess it up again.
We picked the name that was very difficult to say over the phone. Well, thanks for having
Sam,
me, fellas.
Bob,
Good to
Gary,
catch up.
Michael.
Yeah, come on back again, James. Don't be a stranger. Come in anytime. And everybody that's on here, I just want to say, everybody have a Merry Christmas. And we will be doing a chat next Monday night. And I'm going to do my best to get a live video out of Nobby on the 15th while we're setting up. So you guys have a great evening. Have a great Christmas. And we'll see you next Monday night. And I'll be on Charlie's next Friday night. Don't forget. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe and like. It does us both a lot of favors. Thank you.
See you guys.
Later.
All right. Good night, James. Good night, everybody. All right.
End stream.